I told you, Niners fans, I told all of you that still had those delusions of the Niners trying to keep their season alive, of trying to, keep their hopes up for a miracle, a run to keep their NFC West hopes in their palm of their hands. Well, that can officially go bye-bye now. Are you ready to stop believing now, regardless of how crappy this division is? Because, well, I said it. I said it in the preview, in the lead up to this game. The Niners were going to head into Buffalo to face Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills under the bright lights of Sunday Night Football in a winter storm, where a storm was coming to them, whether they had their starting quarterback or not, with how shorthanded they were going into this game, and they were going to get smashed, and they were going to get stacked. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. As expected, they got smashed and stacked. Sure, they had Brock Purdy with them, but the result was basically the same. 35-10. That was the result of this game. So, honestly, where do you even begin? Where do we even begin talking about this game? Because basically, this team had no heart playing in this game. This team, they almost basically barely tried in this game, other than a few spurts. But other than that, that was basically it. I guess from a minor perspective, from a general perspective, Kyle Shanahan tried his usual bag of uncreative tricks. I called Kyle Shanahan the Triple H of the NFL. He thinks he's trying something creative, but he's actually not. Running the ball left and right, but everyone knows it's coming. And trying the short and mid-range passing game in this condition, it's not going to work. It didn't work. It failed. And then I'm not going to dunk too much on Brock Purdy, because sure, he tried to play in the elements, but it just wasn't working. It's clearly him not being accustomed to this kind of playing style in this weather. It's not like Josh Allen clearly outplayed him in this condition. So Purdy was either throwing well behind, or the receivers were not looking. So he threw under 100 yards and he fumbled. He fumbled a pass, which we'll talk about a little later. And then, why was George Kittle only targeted just once in this game? Why didn't they scheme up? If you wanted to get the mid-range passing game going, or at least a short passing game going in these conditions, why was George Kittle only targeted just once in this game? Why didn't you make him the leading man that the Buffalo defense couldn't attack much? And where was Deebo Samuel again? Where was Ricky Pearsall again? Why were they non-existent in this game? So defensively, they started out good with how they were swarming all over the Bills' receiving core, how they were swarming all over the rushing attack at first. But then, like with the Green Bay game, just quickly fell apart with self-induced mistakes, penalties, missing their assignments in the passing game with Josh Allen's dink and dunk passing game. And they also were missing their tackles. They just couldn't shut down the receivers after the initial tackle. It was like a deflating effort out there. Now onto the specific stuff, because there was a lot of specifics in this game. Christian McCaffrey, man, he is actually playing pretty good in this game. He was taking advantage of the Bills' kind of sketchy run defense, and especially taking advantage of the running game being a major key factor in this weather. Busting through the holes that the offensive line, as sketchy as it is, providing holes for him. The straight line running game being very effective for the Niners, at least what Kyle Shanahan was trying to dial up. So he managed to take advantage of that, but I believe it was in the second quarter where he hurt his knee on a non-contact play. And from what I'm seeing, immediately after the game, what Kyle Shanahan said, it's a potential season ender. Great. Just great. In a season where the consequences of failing to finish the story back in February, it's even worse now. It's like, McCaffrey was already dealing with Achilles tendonitis. And you bring him back, you think he's healthy, but it's clear that he's not. But I mean, this is a completely unrelated injury, which is at least a little positive. But of course, it's an injury, so then it's not so positive. But still, it sucks. This absolutely sucks for McCaffrey, man. He just got back. He's trying to play through it, trying to get his reps back, and now this happens. This sucks, man. And then you have their best offensive drive of the day, the third quarter. And I believe this is the opening drive of the third quarter, or the second one. And then it ends with Kyle Juszczyk fumbling at the goal line. Like, why was Kyle Juszczyk used as the back when the Niners were trying to punch it in the end zone? When Jordan Mason, who had done pretty well in place of the injured McCaffrey in the snow, he had been busting through the Bills' run defense. He had been busting through the Niners' offensive line. He had been plowing through the snow. No pun intended. Why was Kyle Juszczyk being the featured back on that play? Like, why? So they were a little fortunate that the Bills didn't convert that into points, but then, yeah, that doesn't mean that they couldn't stop the Bills from converting more points later on, because then you had Brock Purdy having the ball slip through his hands for an easy Bills recovery, and then the defense let Josh Allen score on them immediately afterwards, and then Deebo Samuel lost a fumble immediately after Josh Allen scored that touchdown on them. So when you look at this from a Niners perspective, yeah, it's clear that they didn't come prepared. They didn't come ready to play in this weather, like, at all. Like, they were all talk about it, yet they weren't actually ready for it. Like, Kyle Shanahan didn't have his players ready to play under the bright lights of Sunday night, under the bright lights of the winter weather, the winter storm. And here we are now. Meanwhile, for the Buffalo Bills, from their perspective, just like the Packers, they really didn't need to do a whole lot to smash and pack the Niners in this one. Actually, they had it much easier. They did a much easier job of smashing the Niners in this one, given they're a much better team than Green Bay, and consider that they're used to playing in the snow, and they're a much deeper team than the Niners, and they have a much better quarterback than Green Bay and Josh Allen, because he's an MVP candidate. And the Bills didn't just smash the 49ers, they completely humiliated and demoralized them. Like James Cook roasting and toasting the 49ers run defense, 65 yards to the house early in the second quarter to put the lead. I believe it was 14-3 at that point. And then, sure, they got gashed on the ground at times, but that's how you play the game in these elements. But the Bills defense, they are still frequently challenging Kyle Shanahan to force Brock Purdy to throw. Like, they're forcing Kyle Shanahan's hand to dial up some plays for his quarterback, rather than, forcing Kyle Shanahan's hand to, let's run the ball the majority of the time. No. As the snow started coming down, they were really locking down Jordan Mason. Basically Jordan Mason, and forcing Brock to throw that dang ball in that weather. So they were basically telling, hey, your quarterback can't throw in these conditions. So yeah, that was basically the Bills defense challenging Kyle Shanahan in this game. And then looking at it from Josh Allen, he was pretty good in this game. He was making plays with both his arms and his legs, and doing some creative stuff in this one. Throwing a touchdown to Amari Cooper, for example, and then Amari Cooper threw it back to Josh Allen, who scored the touchdown. that basically sealed the deal for this game. It basically reminded me of that touchdown with Marcus Mariota deflecting it off of himself in that wildcard game to Kansas City, which was kind of cool. So, yeah, Allen's night was basically done in the fourth quarter as the Bills locked up the AFC East for the 5th straight year. So, the division's already wrapped up with over a month left to go for the Bills. So, yeah, just goes to show how bad, how terrible the AFC East is this year. So, overall, when you look at this game for both of these teams, well, I mean, the Bills, you can consider them, once again, another legit playoff contender. You just have to wonder when they get to that stage, whether it's the divisional or the AFC Championship game, can they finally get past the hump? Can they actually finish their story and finally make it back to the Super Bowl? That remains to be seen come January time. Meanwhile, when you look at the 49ers, I mean, you should have fully expected this under the bright lights of Sunday night. You should have fully expected the Niners to get smashed in this game by the Bills, just like last week against the Packers. If you were expecting something else, then I don't know what to tell you, because you had no Trent Williams, you had no Nick Bosa, no Aaron Banks, no Diamador Lenore, and you were playing in the elements of the snow. I mean, I get it. Injuries suck, but almost every team that has them is dealing with it. But holy crap. The effort, though, the effort level of this team that they showed against the Bills was so bad. It was even worse than what we saw in Green Bay. There were mistakes left and right. Players were faltering to the snow. They were basically folding to the snow. And not folding in love. They were like folding. They gave up. They waved the white flag. And that's basically what the Niners should be doing the rest of the season. Wave the white flag. Especially when you can look at the rest of the Niners schedule. The next month, the rest of the year. Even if they have a winnable game or two, they need to follow this mantra the rest of the way. Lose them all. Lose them all, fellas. Lose them all. Like, even though you're in a pretty weak division with how many games back? 2 games back. And regardless of your schedule, Seattle schedule, Rams schedule, Arizona schedule, I don't care. This team just looks like they don't want to be there right now. Kyle doesn't look like he wants to be there right now. This team, they look checked out. They look checked out from failing to finish the story in February, all the playoff games from years past. They look done. They look mentally checked out. So, rest of the way, follow the mantra. Lose them all. And get to the offseason. So, looking ahead to Week 14 against the Chicago Bears, they finally return home to sunnier and warmer weather, welcoming Caleb Williams and the 4-8 Bears. The Bears, they slipped out of playoff contention, and they've just fired Matt Eberflush. Yes, Eberflush, because he's basically flushed the season for how he's mismanaged various games and Caleb Williams' rookie development. And recently, he stupidly mismanaged the Bears' last game in Detroit on Thanksgiving. Yeah, we all remember how he mismanaged that last drive. So, in the interim, they got offensive coordinator Thomas Brown in his first audition for potentially wanting to become the permanent head coach in Chicago. So, we'll see what the Bears have dialed up on a mini bye week as they head to Santa Clara. So, considering how depleted and deflated the Niners are right now, hell, I can't even expect Caleb and the Bears to beat up on this team. But we'll see what happens going into the next week against Caleb and the Bears. As the Niners, they're 5-7 now. They're dead last in the NFC West. But once again, whether or not they tried to do something in this weak division, again, lose them all, pal. Lose them all. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the comments below on the 49ers getting smashed by the Buffalo Bills as their season is basically done. It's essentially over. But for those still in denial about it, let's hash it out in the comments below. Of course, let's be civil about it. But this is a safe and respectful place to let our delusions out and just in general hash it out as 49ers fans. But let's have a conversation about it in the comments below as the Niners drop this game against the Buffalo Bills 35-10. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until I see you, when I see you in the next one, peace out.